It is a long and involved story, filled with twists and turns. Joseph has been sold into slavery by his brothers, and then his owners in turn sell him into slavery in the house of Pharaoh in Egypt. But the reversal of fortune in the story is so dramatic that it can only be the hand of God at work. Joseph, the hated younger brother, instead of seeking vengeance on his brothers, becomes the savior of his brothers and the entire family. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. Joseph's brothers proved themselves to be schemers of the worst sort. You could say they came by it naturally, though. Their father Jacob, after all, had cheated his brother Esau out of both his birthright and his blessing. And their grandmother Rebekah had put this scheme to steal Esau's blessing into motion in the first place. Then we found that Rebekah's brother Laban was also a schemer, but Jacob proved himself to be his equal. But all of these schemes were child's play compared to Joseph's brother's scheme. They had sold him into slavery and then lied to their father, breaking his heart by telling him Joseph was dead. But they had no way of knowing that their treachery would actually prove life-saving for them. No way I can trace all the twists and turns in just a couple of minutes. It begins with Joseph going from being a slave to being a prisoner, falsely accused of seducing his boss Potiphar's wife. It is while he's in prison that his fortunes change. He turns out to be a dreamer whose dreams accurately foretell the future. When Pharaoh has a disturbing dream, one of Pharaoh's servants who has been imprisoned with Joseph remembers Joseph's accuracy in interpreting dreams, and he commends Joseph to Pharaoh. Pharaoh calls for Joseph and tells him his dreams. Joseph interprets them to mean that 7 years of famine are coming, but not before 7 years of plenty. Joseph then advises Pharaoh to build storehouses and collect enough grain over the next 7 years of plenty to provide food for the following 7 years of famine. Pharaoh is pleased with the plan and in fact releases Joseph from prison and makes him Pharaoh's highest official, and placing him in charge of the plan to warehouse food. Now we come full circle in the story. When the famine hits, Joseph's family back in Canaan feels its effects. They hear about the food that the Egyptians have stored, and Jacob sends his sons, all except the youngest son Benjamin, to go to Egypt to try to buy enough grain to sustain them. Now it's Joseph's turn to scheme. Only his scheme is not malicious. A little devious perhaps, but not malicious. There are lots of twists and turns to the story, but the upshot is this. When he ultimately reveals himself to be their long-lost brother, they assume he'll exact revenge on them. Only Joseph doesn't. Even after their father dies and his brothers once again assume that with Jacob out of the picture, Joseph will seek revenge for them for their underhandedness in selling him into slavery, he reassures them of his positive intentions for them. For Joseph recognizes what they don't, that God's hand has been in this all along. The entire book of Genesis closes with his assurance to his brothers and his confession of faith in God's providential hand in the entire drama. We read, Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Even though you intended to do harm to me, God intended it for good, in order to preserve a numerous people, as he is doing today. So have no fear. I myself will provide for you and your little ones." In this way, he reassured them, speaking kindly to them. This points to a critical understanding of God's purposes and God's agency in the world. In short, it's about God's providence. I think there are at least two ways of understanding it. In this particular case, God has been actively involved from the very beginning, not simply bending the brothers' treachery to his ends, but seemingly guiding their actions in order to ultimately provide for the family's long-term well-being. Neither the brothers nor even Joseph himself could have seen God's hand in it until events fully unfolded. But I don't think we need to understand God always as the cause of terrible circumstances. A second way to understand God's role in things is to see that out of tragedy and even out of evil, God is able to bring good. It is not that the evil is the cause of the good, any more than God himself is the cause of the evil, but that out of tragedy and evil, God can bring blessing. It is a way of saying that there is no circumstance out of which God cannot bring good. Again, it doesn't make God the author or cause of evil, but insists that God is ultimately more powerful than whatever evil the world can invent, even selling one's brother into slavery for 20 coins. Tomorrow, Solomon's dream. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.